with that, we will bring on our first guest of the day, as we do at this time on Fridays. He is Mike McAllister. He is the publisher of AllSyracuse.com. Welcome, Mike. You got a favorite MJ song? You down with the Michael Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, who hasn't listened to Michael Jackson? You know, I would say I like The Way You Make Me Feel or Beat It. Those are probably my two favorites.
All right, I can promise at least one of those two later in the show. So we'll
I just feel bad for you that you got labeled the Pauly for today. That's rough.
Well, I guess it was a self. I'm sitting in the chair.
He's the one that gave it to himself.
Yeah, that's even worse.
I could call him the Steve of the day. I don't know.
Well, I can be Pauly. That means I get to make several screw-ups throughout the show, and it'll be okay.
That's true. You get a bigger, longer leash if you're Pauly, I guess. There you go.
So I guess today I'm Pauly talking to Mike. Tomorrow when I'm talking to Mike, I'll be Brian again. Mike and I will be on the TK Tailgate Tour presented by Taco Bell tomorrow morning at 9 over on TK99. So looking forward to that, Mike, this week. Let's get into the football. What do you feel? You know, Mario and I were just talking about this. You know, obviously logic is not leading us towards a Syracuse win tomorrow, but how do you think this game sets up?
I don't have a good feeling. I guess I'll start with that. Listen, last week was pretty bad. They were thoroughly dominated from start to finish. Hopefully we won't have the same officiating blunder that we did in the beginning of that game. But, I think Syracuse is going to have to play significantly better than it has all season just to try to stay within shouting distance of this Florida State team. They're really good, but you need them to play down to you a little bit, which, they have. They didn't play that well against Boston College. That was a tight game last week. They let Virginia Tech creep back from down 22-0 to make it 22-17 in the third quarter at one point. So they've let teams that are inferior to them hang around. And so if you're a Syracuse fan looking for some hope, I think it's that you hope this team is ticked off with the way it's played the last 2 weeks. They come out a little bit more focused and with a little bit more energy than they've shown. And that Florida State, overlooks you a little bit, and that allows you to stay in the game longer than most people expect.
It's hard to say Florida State has a weakness when you have a Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback, you have a tailback that ran for 200 yards last week, you have stud wide receivers. But if you're looking at this Florida State team, what part can Syracuse kind of circle in on if there is one?
I don't know that there's like a weakness where you can say that you gotta hammer that over and over again. But I think that teams have had some success throwing the ball on them a little bit here and there. But that again goes back to your ability to protect Garrett Schrader. In the last 2 weeks, the offensive line has not shown the ability to do that. And this defensive front is better than what they saw last week against North Carolina, and it's I think on par with what they saw 2 weeks ago against Clemson. And those fronts dominated Syracuse's offensive line. So any chance Syracuse has, to me, means that the offensive line has a monster game and has a significant improvement than what we've seen the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, Mike, how does FSU eye test for you, like, nationally this year? I know they're number 4 in the country. Are you looking at them as like, okay, this is a team that can win the national title, or is this a team that can win the ACC? Where are you kind of putting FSU in that mix this year?
Well, I definitely think they can win the ACC, and I think if they go undefeated and win the ACC, they're going to be in the playoff. Now, anytime you're in the playoff, you've got a shot at a national title. But if I'm comparing them to teams like Michigan and Georgia, and even though Alabama has one loss, a team like Alabama, I think those teams are more talented top to bottom than what Florida State is. But you get into the playoff, it's 2 games. And is Florida State good enough that they could win 2 games against teams like that? Yes. I just think if they got into that situation, they wouldn't be the favorites, at least if they got to the national championship game, if not the semifinal game.
Garrett Schrader, over these last 2 games, we know that the offensive struggle, and he's kind of put it on his shoulders. Like we've struggled because I haven't played very well. I haven't protected the football in games. Is there something more than that? Is it, the offensive line hasn't been able to protect him, or what is it that hasn't been allowing Garrett to play to him, his potential?
Well, I think he's pressing a little bit and trying to do too much because he's running for his life all the time based on the offensive line's lack of protection, and then they're not able to keep things balanced. The biggest thing against North Carolina, they were trying to run the ball early, and they just weren't able to open up any holes, any running room for LaQuint Allen. So that was an issue. I thought they got away from that a little bit against Clemson. They showed some flashes at times of being able to run against them, but This offense, if it's going to work, the wide receivers without Oronde Gadsden aren't anything that teams are going to be scared of, right? So they're not game planning trying to take away an Oronde Gadsden, and that sort of opens things up for other people. They're basically just sort of daring the wide receivers to get open and beat you, and Syracuse hasn't shown the ability to do that so far. So part of how you can combat that is with a strong running game. They need LaQuint Allen to be able to take some of that workload and not just have it be Garrett Schrader running around like he did against Purdue. They need someone to complement him in order to take some pressure off of him having to do everything. So if someone can emerge from the wide receiver group, if the offensive line can open up some lanes for LaQuint Allen, both of those things would take some pressure off of Garrett Schrader, and then he wouldn't be pressing as much, which leads to some of those mistakes.
Mike McAllister with us, getting you ready for Cuse and FSU tomorrow. Mike, I want to combine kind of your recruiting knowledge and prowess with, I think one of the major talking points this week is what Dino said at his press conference on Monday. He's talking about NIL and player retention and players being bought away from your programming. Obviously it's looking at guys like Jahad Carter and Deuce Chestnut and Jatias Gear and, guys they could really use right now. And, he talked more about it and more in depth on his radio show last night. We'll play back some of that for you later on throughout the day today. What do you make of all of that from the recruiting lens? It sounds, it's got to be wearing on all coaches right now. It just sounds tiring for Dino to be dealing with this stuff day in and day out all through the football season now.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where the comment came from. I don't think it was just he's deciding today he's going to rail against this type of a situation. My guess is, it was well documented by Oronde Gadsden that he was approached by different schools, most notably in the SEC during the offseason, to try to leave Syracuse and go to some of those other schools. So, is that happening again, whether it's to Oronde or someone else, and that's, frustrated coach, and that's what led to the comment? That was kind of my initial gut feeling when I heard the comments that he made, was it's happening again, and he's frustrated by it, because when you do a good job finding under-the-radar recruits, right? You look at the Jahad Carters. Now, Deuce Chestnut was a 4-star, but you look at Jahad Carter, Oronde Gadsden, even, go back to Sean Tucker, Matthew Bergeron, et cetera. These are guys that weren't very highly regarded recruits. Syracuse scouted them. Syracuse found them. They grabbed them. They brought them in, developed them, and they turned into really good NFL-caliber players. And yet Syracuse has to constantly re-recruit them once their diamonds in the rough develop into actual diamonds that other schools can see. And I'm sure that's extremely frustrating. When you're at a school like Syracuse, that's how you have to recruit. You have to develop. You have to find the under-the-radar guys. And when you do that and it works, and then other schools poach them after you've done your hard work to get them to that point, and it destroys your depth, you lose multiple starters every offseason, I can understand why that would be frustrating and lead to comments like that. I don't know if that's what happened, but that was, kind of my gut reaction. I think it's just until the NCAA decides to do something to stop some of this and to actually govern, which is the whole point of them existing, then this is what's going to happen, and it's the reality of college football, unfortunately.
Yeah, good luck with that with the NCAA.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll happen.
Yeah, they're not doing anything.
Yeah,
they don't care.
That'll happen soon. I'm sure they're on top of it.
Once lawsuits started getting thrown their way, that's not going to happen. Let's move on to basketball, Mike. First time we get to see Syracuse men's and women's teams tonight, the Orange Tip-Off event. What excites you as far as Coach Autry's first season? Is it, them maybe likely playing man-to-man defense? Is it, Judah Mintz coming back for another year? Is it JJ coming here? What is something that tickles you?
Well, I think it's kind of all of that, but it's the fact that, the last couple of years, right, Jim Boeheim would say in the offseason, we're going to look at playing a little bit more man this year, and it wouldn't really happen. But it seems like they're going to go to man as kind of their primary defense now, and that really hasn't been seen at Syracuse in decades. So I think it's always exciting when you get something new and kind of fresh like that. It'll be interesting to see I think how Coach Autry handles a lot of things in terms of in-game management, the rotation, when his team is struggling, how does he use his timeouts? How much does he let his players play through stuff? Sort of a lot of those little nuances. I'm excited to see how he handles a lot of those, but I also think the potential with the guards they have to be a much more up-tempo and exciting offensive team, I think that should get Syracuse fans pretty excited too, because you've got two guys in J.J. Starling and Judah Mintz that could both be your primary ball handler, lead fast breaks, and you've got a guy in Chance Westry who I think has the skill set to do that as well, potentially off the bench. So I think you've got three really talented, good ball handling guards, and the athleticism that they've got on the wings. I think the ability to get out and run is going to be fun and kind of get back to, I think, where Syracuse was in the 90s and into the early 2000s.
Yeah, so the hope is it's going to be a fun watch. Tonight, who knows what they're going to show tonight? The basketball at this event.
I don't think you're going to be seeing much.
I don't know.
Stifling man-to-man defense tonight.
our fans, the fans are going to be like, we want to see that man-to-man. People are just running around and doing whatever. But we'll see how it goes. That event is 7:00 tonight at the Dome. Tickets are free, but you do need a ticket.
A selfie station we made available too. So, Mike, if you want to take your boy over there and get some selfies with Judah, JJ, and tell Benny we said hi.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm definitely taking him. So it'll be, he's been into everything basketball. We've been going to Eric Dievendorf's basketball camps. So he's been loving that. So. Yeah, we're going to go have a good time. And, I'll just say this. If I was Coach Autry and my team comes out to scrimmage, I'm having them both play zone on the first possession. Just to troll everybody.
Just screw everybody.
I would do that.
All right, try to get a selfie with Naheem McLeod just to see if you can angle the phone right to fit everybody in the frame.
I'm going to have to stand on a chair in the locker room to interview him this year.
Him sitting down is very tall. Yeah. All right, Mike, I'll see you in the morning, man, but thanks for hopping on for a few.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.